Hello, it's Andrew Eborn here again, and welcome back to the show where I am yet again joined by Andy Clockwise. How are you doing, Andy?
Again, yeah, I'm still great, Andrew. How are you doing?
Love it. You're now a regular on this, and what was a delight last time was we had your father on as well, Brian Clark, and he was opening up about all sorts of things and glorious moments. Had you heard a lot of that before?
Yeah, I had done. Apart from the blind date, I didn't know that. I didn't know, or I don't remember knowing that that he met his second wife from a blind date.
There you go.
Was new.
So we love that sort of stuff, and the whole idea is that every time people talk, you find a little bit more about each other. How are you doing, Brian? Are you with us now?
I'm very well. So I'll get my daughter around and give me a hand.
Oh, hello. So I can see your daughter's hand. Talking about giving a hand. Hello, the daughter.
Yeah, that's number 2. That's Michelle.
Michelle, lovely. How old? Well, I wouldn't ask how old you. What's the age difference between you and Andy?
About 10 years.
10 years. So you're in your 20s.
No.
So now you're there, Michelle. Maybe we could ask you something. Tell me about how you met Andy and what your reaction was.
I don't know. He was never kept a secret. We always knew that he was out there somewhere. The first night he came to visit, I only lived down the road, and I was kind of curtain twitching at the door, checking to see if the car was still there, just because I wanted to go and phone and see how it was and everything else. But I kind of like to think we've welcomed him in, and we've all just clicked. We've all just got on. There's never been no bad feelings between us. We've all just kind of got on.
And tell me, it's fascinating to hear, because it's always interesting trying to get family units together. What did your father, who's a real character, I love your father, he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant guy. What had he told you about Andy?
He just told us that we had our brother Rodney, and he had another son out there. He wasn't sure where he was, but one day he'd hoped to find him, and we'd all meet up.
And when you heard that, you seem like a wonderfully inquisitive person as well. When you heard that, you must have asked, what happened? What did you ask?
I think it was just a case of we accepted that happened before he'd met our mum, and that was part of his past. That obviously that we were his future. Obviously, Andy's his future, but what happened in the past doesn't stay in the past. It comes with you. It's like, I don't know, it's part of him.
Part of me.
Yeah, part of you.
Part of me.
And he's such. It's funny, we're sort of talking about him in the third person. He's right in front of you. But it's what I love, and you're absolutely right, Brian. It is part of you, and I think what you were saying beforehand. I love it. She's even positioning you. This is what you want from a daughter. Somebody keeps you in the straight and narrow.
Well, no, I wasn't being greedy with the screen. I mean, so I went to see Joe Pasquale with Andy in Harlow, and he introduced me to Joe Pasquale. He said, he said, you must be the sperm donor then. How about that for a cracker?
If you move your chair on, so you can have a better picture.
A what?
Move your chair.
Well, there you go. I love this. There you go. It's all that sort of stuff. So it is an interesting thing. And what I love about these things, Brian. Bye. Nice to see you. Take care. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. What cracking family you've got.
Oh, they're superb. They've been very supportive throughout the whole thing. I couldn't wish for better daughters. I had a bad spell in 2018. I thought I had a mini stroke, and hope that as time went on, that was found out that I had nothing wrong with it at all. But I had a bad episode of I had about 14 weeks I couldn't drive because I was waiting for tests, and they were very supportive through that. And they've been marvellous, my girls. So Andy is I'm surprised how he's been, really, because he's gone out of his way for me. I mean, so he comes over Colchester quite regularly. I go over to see him. I like to think regularly with this virus, and because my wife's at high risk, I haven't been over. I think I went over just after Christmas. I normally try and keep things on an even keel. So if he comes to me, then I go back to him, because I don't think a relationship can work if you're all one-sided and not sharing. You know, that's the way I look at life.
And it's a great attitude to have, and part of the sharing as well, Brian, is talking. I mean, it's you are such a wonderfully warm person who clearly adores your children. As you say, it's welcome to my world.
That's right.
I think the more that people understand your world, the more welcome they are to it. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah. I'm spiritually minded as well. Andrew's not that way inclined, but it is something that he either does or he don't. I mean, I don't push my beliefs on anybody, but I find it's helped me through my difficult times. And I think if anything can help you, then it's got to be a bonus, hasn't it?
I know, and I think you're right. And a lot of people, as I say, the great feedback, I was chatting to your son, Andy, earlier, and he says one of the big things, and the reason he felt so comforted and felt really good to speak about things, is it helped put everything in perspective for himself, but also it helped so many other people.
Yeah, I can understand that, because I would say the actual time factor between when I got in touch, because I had somebody come to the door, and that was 4 years before he actually wrote the letter, but he'd been over and sat outside. This is what I can't make out. He sat outside opposite the house watching me put up bloody Christmas lights, pissing down the snow, and he never comes and said, "Do you want a hand, mate?" You know, he didn't say, "Oh, did you need a hand to put them lights up?" But no.
None of that sort of thing.
I never saw you outside the house.
You told me you did.
No. You dreamt it.
Even her indoors said that you bloody did. So there you go.
I love. Are we having a Jerry Springer moment? Is this?
No. Her indoors said he did.
And her indoors must know. She knows her onions.
She's very good. She suffered with COPD. So this coronavirus is, if she gets it, I'm afraid that will take her. So we've been very careful. Andy's been very careful. He's been wonderful about the whole thing. He's been regular updates on the phone. We video chat. You heard about the shows we're doing on a Sunday to bring the family together. Yeah. And actually, my second son has joined in.
Oh, that's good. So you're reunited with him again, because you mentioned.
Yes,
that's good.
It's been lovely to see my other two grandchildren. The whole thing is knitted together well. You know,
and I think sometimes what happens, Brian, is I always say there's nothing which unites people more than a common enemy.
I don't think I was an enemy, but
no, not you. No, I was talking about the virus.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't calling you an enemy.
Oh. No, but yeah, that sort of like implied that. I thought, well, no, I'm not an enemy. No.
No. The common enemy was the virus. So the coronavirus, getting lots of families together, which is wonderful. Now, as a father myself, and all sorts of things, when you first saw Andy, you must have had so many questions for him. What were the questions you asked him?
When we first met, I don't think we hardly spoke. I invited him in. He come in. He had a coffee. He sat in the armchair across the room, and that's his chair. Every time he come over, he always sits in that chair. And
it's nearest the door, so I can get out quick. That's all.
Did you like that?
Right.
That's it. You're right. That's set her indoors down. Thought you rubbed her shoulders up the wrong way around now.
So what were the questions you asked him on that first time?
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember. The whole thing was a little bit taken aback. He hardly spoke. He just looked at the photographs on the wall. He think, well, do I belong to all them? And I think he got a bit frightened, you know, because that you look at that lot on the wall. But we had a family photograph done shortly after he come into the family. So I have a family photograph. And that is all up there now. We've had pictures of, he got remarried in Vegas. So I've actually got a wedding photograph of him. But I mean, say, I've never known anybody to be so helpful. You know, we were strangers 13 years ago, and that didn't seem to affect anything. You know, I'd get a hug now, I have a little peck on the cheek, and not with this virus business, but we've got to wait till that finishes. But I can't wait to have a lovely hug, because I do like hugs. Whether you're a man or a woman, that don't make a difference. I think it's the general touch, and it's a spiritual.
You're right. There are a lot of people who are missing those hugs. So, I mean, you make a very good point.
That is right. Yeah, yeah.
The other very good point, because as you say, there are sort of questions floating around in people's heads all of the time. So now, one of the questions must have been, what happened?
No, he never inquired about it at all. He just in the letter he put that he was adopted as a baby, which I knew, and he told me who his mum was, which I knew, and where he went from then I don't know, and then that was basically it. I mean, to say he never inquired about my relationship at all, you know, with his mum. I mean, to say it's something that whether he'd already knew enough about it not to want to ask, I don't know, but he's never questioned my relationship with his mum.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, Brian? Because I think a lot of people, when you want to complete yourself as a person, you want to get as much background as possible, don't you?
I think that he's had enough background. I don't think he's short of anything. You know, I've given him all the information that I know, and hopefully his mother's done the same. I don't know, but I look at my relationship with Andy, not anybody else's. You know, it's something that I'm very, very precious and to hang on to, you know, because it's something that's important, you know, to have somebody out your life for that period of time. I mean, so he was coming up to his 40th year. And we got an invite to the party, went to Chinese restaurant. But the difficult thing is, mum and dad are sometimes in the same area. And then I take a step back because I don't want to cause a rift. Because I'm frightened if I say anything, and that's going to upset her husband, and that's going to upset Andy. So I just stand back and just go along with everything. You know, I'd like to speak to her, but I don't want to be a bit pushy about it, if you know what I mean. You know, I'd rather things be on an even keel, you know, which is very difficult.
And it must be, I understand, it's very traumatic. And the other thing that I find speaking to lots of people around the world is that you recognise that any tale of any event is only from one person's perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And what I also think is really helpful is giving people a platform to say, actually, this is how I saw it, and this is important for you to know.
That's right. That's right. I mean, say that. I mean, say he had a lovely mum and dad. They brought him up lovely. I couldn't have wished for a better son. I didn't get to meet his parents. Sadly, his mother died just as I started to come in to meet him. I went over to give him a hand to clean the flat out, to take some of the belongings to the tip and whatever. Because I've always tried to help if I can. I'm one of these people that helps anybody. And if I can help out, then I do the best I can.
Yeah, and you're very generous on that sort of basis. You can tell you have a great heart. You can tell you love your children a lot. And I can tell also, Brian, that there must obviously have been a lot of hurt having to not have the son all those years ago and to keep him with you.
That has been the hardest thing. I mean, so when I gave up Rodney, he was 9, but it was his decision. You know, it's something I wouldn't force him to come if he didn't want to come. And this is why I am. It's like Andrew. Sorry, Andrew. If Andy don't want to have a relationship, then that had been finished with it. I wouldn't have persisted it because it's not something that I had in my life. So I'm not going to miss something I haven't had. But I'm glad that he decided to come on board and spend some quality time with me to give me chance to show him what sort of a person I really am, and I think he's seen that. He means he reckons I'm a bloody nutter, but there you go. But the old,
I don't know anyone like you. You're unique.
Yeah, see, I'm unique. See, only one of me. See. And you mentioned Brian, that I mean the circumstances for Rodney's situation were very different because, as you say, there was a court order and it's all about access and so on and so forth, and it's all about choice. Andy didn't have a choice in the early days, did he?
No. Sadly, that wasn't allowed. But the thing is, I think at the time it was for the best. I was still an apprentice bricklayer. I was on about, I don't know, £19 a week, and I didn't know how to go about getting a house or anything because I was self-employed. Well, I worked. I was on the cards then, but I wasn't earning the wage where I could get a mortgage. So at the long run, I think it worked out for the best. I mean, so he's had the best of the world that he's been in. And it wasn't until he was a teenager that he got to find out about me and his mum. So I think until that hurt come along, because that must have hurt him. You know, I felt very sorry for him at that stage during his interview, because that's sort of like kicking the pants, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, no, not mine. You know, that's not nice, is it? You've loved the boy all them years, and all of a sudden, you're not mine. You know, how can you do that? You know, very sad.
And you mentioned about the situation, and sometimes it helps people reconcile the difficulties and a lot of hurt that's there. There's taking you back to that time. You were an apprentice bricklayer. Who were you working for?
I was working for W.A. Hills.
Okay.
I served 5 years. I started off at 1 6 halfpenny an hour. I finished up about £21 a week, I think it was. And then soon as I finished my apprenticeship, they give me the sack. And then I was self-employed since then. I've gone around and found my own work, done my own business. I've stayed on my own. I haven't had, although I did have a gang at one time. I built a bridge that goes over the Hythe. I had 16 bricklayers down there. I was sort of like a foreman, go around and checking all the work, brushing it down, filling all the pinholes in, brushing it down, and generally making sure that looks good. But now I've done some lovely jobs. I worked at Lowestoft. I've done the burger centre at Lowestoft, McDonald's. I've done the block of flats up by the cemetery. And I said to them, when we was building it, I said they're going to put a conveyor belt so when the people pass away, they can go straight into the graveyard. They said no.
That is extraordinary. A wonderful sense of humour, which Andy's obviously inherited as well, which is interesting. Talking about, so you're there, £19 a week, as you say, when you first sort of found out. Presumably, it's a fairly small community. You started. When did you start dating Andy's mother?
19. I don't know. It must have been the year before, 68. It wasn't long. I can't really remember much about it. I know that we just had a Christmas together. I got her a card and a bit of jewellery. Couldn't afford much because I was giving my mum money, and then I was trying to survive on it. It was very difficult times, you know. That was, but the actual term of the relationship, I couldn't tell you. It's something that it's very vivid in my mind. You know, I remember. I packed all my friends up to do the relationship properly. Rather than muck her around and have one night with her and then 2 nights down the pub. You know, I used to see her quite regularly. We used to go fishing and doing things together. That was nice. You know, used to go and catch some eels and take her home for a mum. I thought everything was all right, you know. She introduced me to HP sauce.
What did she?
We had baked beans on toast, and she said, put some sauce on it. And she had a dog called Rusty, and that would always sing to Doctor Who.
Oh, that's right. Doctor Who with Rusty. There we go. K9 was the one Doctor Who.
That would howl to her, oh, Doctor Who, oh. Yeah.
Very good. And then the relationship goes on, and you were quite young at that stage. How old were you?
I was 19.
19. So 19 at that age. So a youngster. And then,
Yeah.
and then Andy's mother told you one day that she was pregnant. Tell me about that.
Say that again. Sorry.
She said she told you one day that she was pregnant with Andy. Tell me about that.
I don't remember her telling me. Not until that was too late. I went round one evening to take her out, and her dad told me to sling me up. He said, your baby daughter pregnant. He said, you can sling your up. So that was that. We did meet up a couple of times afterwards. But it was very difficult. It's not, that was about it, really. You know, we didn't actually, like you say, so I went to visit her, as I normally did, and Dad was there at the gate, and that was it. You know, he come after me, so I skedaddled quick, and we got to meet up a couple of times, and that was it.
So the relationship was still going on. You hadn't split up, even though you were youngsters. It's very, very.
Yeah, I got told I must never see her again by her dad. And Dad split us up. I didn't know what was to become of the baby, not until a later date. But that was basically it. You know. But that's how it is, isn't it, sometimes. You know, you can't alter things, can you? Although I did try, but you can't. If you're not getting the support, it's very difficult, isn't it?
And you said, absolutely, it's very difficult. And as you say, you're a youngster. You're an apprentice, so it wasn't a huge wage. Bringing up a child was very difficult. You were still in a relationship with Andy's mother. You hadn't split up. What would you like to have happened?
Well, I'd like to that to have matured. I'd like it to have run its course. We was very compatible as people. She was not a demanding young lady. She was quite easy going like I was. We go to pictures or we'd do something together if we could afford it. She had a job, and that was just all right. I mean, so I think that worked out all right if we'd had a bit of help. But we didn't get the help, so that didn't happen, did it?
So would you have liked it to have developed?
Looking back, I would have done, but life's gone on now. I've moved on, she's moved on, but I do like the parallel between the relationships. I mean, so she went on to have another son, so did I, and she had 3 daughters, and so did I. That seems strange that is carried on as though we was together. If you can see that at that point of view, it's all very you know, that's very.
I did say to Andrew last time when we spoke about the similarities, the fact that it's mirrored both sides. It's really odd that the relationship between both sides of the family.
Very, very strange.
Yeah.
And what's interesting as well, Brian, as you say, is that at that stage you actually wanted the relationship to continue, but it was the father, your girlfriend's father, who said, I don't want you to be any part of this. Is that right?
That's right. Yep. And that was, I think that was about 6 to 8 weeks before we met up again. I used to ring up and get told that she weren't in. So I started going back with my mates. I started on the old beer. I found it very difficult to start with, and then as you get used to not being around each other, you normally drift apart, don't you? You know, and then I went on to the next relationship, and I just moved on from there. So when I come back to Colchester from Lowestoft, I had a look round for her to try and find her. I thought I'd found her, but it was very difficult to speak to her, so I didn't bother speaking to her. Every time I went to the shop where she was working, she did hold up, but I'm not sure whether that was her or not, so I don't know. You know, but I did try to find her again before in the next relationship, and sadly that didn't work out. You know. And then I had my blind date and got married again.
Yes, you mentioned about that. And you say, I mean, after what effectively Andy's grandfather told you, I want nothing to do with you, you've got to sling your hook. You managed to get together again, you mentioned, with Andy's mother about 8 weeks after that event. Tell me about that.
What was that?
You mentioned that you, after your girlfriend's father told you to sling your hook, that she's pregnant, sling your hook. You tried to get in touch with her a few times, but you managed to get back together again after about 8 weeks after that. Is that right?
Yeah, we had an hour or so. My brother arranged for us to meet up. Roy, his name was. And I went down over to Hadley to see her. We had a walk around, had a chat after how things were doing. I can't remember the actual conversation we had, but that's what happened. And then after that, that was about the last time I see her.
And during that conversation, because I can imagine how some of it went, I mean, you were very keen for the relationship to continue. Her father had said, I want no part of this. Did she at that stage tell you that it had been arranged that Andy would be put out for adoption?
No, I didn't know anything, not until I had the papers come through. I didn't know that was what was going to happen. But, you know, things have happened, and I can't do nothing about it, can I? You know, I don't think he's had a bad life. I think he's done well with what he's had. And actually, to be given a second chance to get into his life, I really appreciate that. You know, that's been very good.
And so at that stage, so 8 weeks, did you assume that your girlfriend, because you hadn't split up, do you assume she was going to keep the baby?
I didn't know either way. You know, she hadn't spoken about being adopted. But the dad never said that was going to be he was going to be adopted. So I don't really know, to be honest with you. You know, as far as I was concerned, she was going to keep the baby, but obviously there was other plans at foot.
And did you raise the possibility that you would like to keep the baby and you'd like the relationship to continue?
No, but I did when Andy. When the papers come through and her brothers come after me, I did speak to my parents about adopting Andy, and we was already 7 of us in 8 of us in a 3-bedroom house, so there wasn't really any room for him at the time, which was very sad. But that was how that went. You know.
So from your point of view, Brian, you would ideally have liked the relationship to continue. To maybe, did you think of marriage?
I think we would have done eventually. I think things would have worked out. Would have had a helping hand, but that didn't work out, did it?
Okay, but
so
you felt
I've got to look to the positive side of things.
I know they're all very positive, and lots of positive things are happening now, and I think it's very helpful. But looking at that side, you actually asked your parents. You asked your parents if they would take Andy in.
Yeah, because he was born then, and so I had the papers come through for the adoption, and I wasn't going to sign to start with. I left it, and then I had her brothers come up, which was very nice, and so I said, "Well, I'll do the right thing and sign the papers," and that was it. You know, he was adopted, and you know that was it.
Did you feel that was the right thing?
I don't really know at the time. I can't remember. It's a long while ago. I know I was pressured into it. I remember that. I remember the boys coming over in the car, and because they were running out of time, apparently he had to be adopted within a certain time. So I just signed the papers and got on with my life.
I mean, you mentioned at that stage that you actually were looking at the alternative, and that either the alternative was the relationship continue and maybe get married later. But in the meantime, you mentioned also about if you had some help. So you went to your own family and suggested that they adopt Andy. Talk to me about that conversation.
I don't really remember much about it. I remember speaking to my mum about it and my dad, and they said, well, with what? Because there was already, I think there was 7 of us or 8 of us children in the house at the time. I think about 7 of us, I think. So living together was a bit crowded. So that was decided that they couldn't help. So that was it. You know, I didn't argue with the point because that was their home, isn't it? I mean, so I can't say, oh, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. You can't be doing that, can you?
And you mentioned also that you had some pressure. What was the pressure put on you?
I had Jackie's 3 brothers come over, and they were using threatening behaviour if I didn't sign the papers. And I thought, well, I don't really want to get into trouble, so I signed the papers, and that was the end of it.
But when you say threatening behaviour, what sort of threatening?
Well, they said that if I didn't sign the papers, I'd get a good hiding. You know, but that's how it was then. You know, I mean, so if I'd have beat them up, then I'd have been in trouble myself, wouldn't I? Because I was a bit of a handful then. Which wasn't very helpful at the time. But there you go.
And looking back on it now, Brian, what would have been the ideal situation?
I'd have liked it to have worked out, but sadly it didn't. I can't remember this on the past, but I'm enjoying my son's our relationship. We've been through a lot together. We've done a lot together, and I hope we continue to do things together because it's been fantastic.
And there must have been a few times over the years. I mean, it seems to me, hearing your side, and I always like to hear all sides of it. It sounds like you really tried. You really tried, Brian, didn't you, to make it work?
Well, I wouldn't say I tried. I mean, so I could have pushed a bit better, but I didn't want to get her into trouble, and I didn't want to get myself into trouble. Because it's very difficult. I mean, so I was always in trouble with the police at that time. I got myself in a bit of bother, bit of ABH and other bits and pieces. I tried to do the right thing, and I'm glad in a way that he wasn't aborted. I mean, so for what Andy's told me, she didn't find out until she was over the legal term to terminate. So if she hadn't gone that far, he wouldn't be here, would he?
No, and then who would you be talking to, Andrew? No one.
So that is positive, isn't it? I think that's a positive.
Well, was that ever discussed with you, though, Brian? Was abortion ever discussed with you?
No. Well, I didn't know she was pregnant until I went over to see her, and the dad told me that she's pregnant and you've got to string her up. Well, he used a bit stronger language than that. Cool. I can't remember what he said, but that was bad. Yeah. But I've enjoyed my life. I hope I've done the right thing in my life. I won't say everything hasn't gone as I'd like it, but you can't always pick and choose. You know, sometimes you've got to make the best of what you got and get on with it. And I've thoroughly enjoyed our relationship. I'm still enjoying the relationship, and I hope it carries on for several years.
I think that's certainly, it's a joy to see both of you. And what I also like, Brian, is your honesty about saying this. And this is, I was chatting to Andy earlier, and a lot of times when people have this situation, one question they ask is why? Why did it happen this way? What would you say to him?
Well, I think that I put it down to destiny. You know, think sometimes in life things don't work out the way they plan them. And for some reason or another, you get, like when you're going through life and you have stillborn children. You know, a bit say my daughter's husband's brother has just lost a baby, and that was lived an hour. Why did that happen? You know, the life is full of what ifs. But sometimes what ifs don't happen, do they? And people have a lovely life and they get all that they work for and cherish. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm enjoying the time we've got together, because I don't know how long we've got, nor does anybody. So I'm just pleased that he decided to come down to my door, knock on the door, and come in and meet me. And welcome to my world. I've got the poster. Professional picture, look at that. And a handsome looking fella, like, hey, welcome to my world, look. He's helping with all that, with all the photography. When you see a professional photographer, I can't get over that. She was a lovely lady, she was. And I had to go there, I had to sing for me supper. I had to do a couple of songs. Every time we meet up, I've got to give him a song, you know that, don't you? He's even learning songs on the organ so we can do a duet.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do is straight after this, we're going to get the two of you together, and maybe to play us out for the final section, you can do something together. Will you do that for me?
What song would you like?
We'll work something out. But for now, Brian, thank you so much for joining me. Andy, thank you very much for joining me. We'll get you straight back in a few minutes after these important messages. But thank you for now.
Okay, lovely.
See you in a bit. Take care.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Ta-da.
Bye.